Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we are diving into one of the most heated political debates unfolding in South Africa right now, the fierce backlash against the National Treasury's 2025 budget, which government insists is pro-poor, but which opposition parties are calling out as misleading, tone-deaf, and even dangerous for millions of South Africans. On the surface, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana and the Treasury are selling this budget as a responsible effort to stabilize the economy while safeguarding key social programs. But once you scratch beneath the surface, the numbers and the politics start to tell a very different story. So make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below. We want to hear your take on whether this budget really speaks to the needs of ordinary South Africans, or if it's just another political spin job. Now, let's unpack what's really going on. On June 4th, in a charged parliamentary debate in Cape Town, South Africa's major opposition parties, the Democratic Alliance, DA, Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, and Inkatha Freedom Party, IFP, didn't just poke holes in the budget speech. They ripped it apart. DA Finance spokesperson Dion George called the budget anti-growth, anti-jobs, and anti-dignity. That's a bold statement, and here's why he says that. Although the Treasury claims to be protecting poor and vulnerable South Africans, funding for education, health, and policing has actually decreased in real terms. In other words, when you factor in inflation and the rising cost of living, there's less money going into the most essential public services than before. Meanwhile, the government's debt servicing costs, the amount we pay just to cover interest on loans, have skyrocketed to all-time highs. That's money that could be spent on clinics, schools, and community safety, but instead is being sucked into the financial black hole of national debt. EFF leader Julius Malema didn't mince his words either. He called the budget a fiscal insult to the working class. And if you look at the details, it's not hard to see why. The government has frozen public sector wages yet again, despite inflation eating away at workers' purchasing power. Fuel levies have gone up, hitting taxi drivers, small-scale farmers, and commuters the hardest. And basic infrastructure, especially in rural and township areas, continues to be underfunded or simply left to decay. You can talk about uplifting the poor while simultaneously burdening them with rising costs and stagnant incomes. Let's not forget that this is all happening against a backdrop of rolling blackouts, a struggling healthcare system, and youth unemployment that refuses to dip below crisis levels. According to Stats SA, over 60% of young people between 15 and 34 are jobless. So when government tries to argue that social grants and school nutrition programs make the budget pro-poor, opposition parties are asking, is that really enough? Finance Minister Godongwana argues that South Africa can't afford to keep spending beyond its means, and that tough fiscal discipline is the only way to prevent an economic collapse. His defenders in the ANC say it's better to cut back now than risk a full-blown debt crisis down the line. They also point to sustained funding for social grants and public health care as proof that the budget still prioritizes the poor. But critics say that's a false choice. Why is it always the poor who are expected to make sacrifices for fiscal discipline? Why is it that corporate tax loopholes remain largely untouched, while ordinary South Africans carry the weight of austerity? And why does the government continue to spend billions on bailing out failing state-owned enterprises like Eskom and SA, entities that have become notorious for mismanagement and corruption? The Inkatha Freedom Party's Mkhuleko Hlengwa put it bluntly, South Africans aren't fooled by slogans. They want food, jobs, and working services. And he's right. The electorate is tired of being told that things are getting better on paper while their lived reality tells a different story. Load shedding continues to disrupt businesses, crime rates remain high, and many communities still lack clean water, reliable transport, or functioning hospitals. Let's also talk about the political angle here. With the 2024 elections behind us and coalition governments reshaping the political map, this budget has become a litmus test for public trust. The ANC-led government needs to prove it still has the moral and political authority to steer the country toward economic justice. But instead, critics say it's falling back on old rhetoric, claiming the moral high ground of being a pro-poor while delivering budgets that seem to favor the elites, the banks, and the politically connected. For the DA, this is a moment to reassert its economic credibility. They're pushing for policies that boost investor confidence, slash unnecessary government spending, and redirect funds toward economic growth strategies. Whether those ideas resonate with the working class is another debate entirely. The EFF, on the other hand, continues to champion radical economic transformation, including land expropriation without compensation, nationalization of mines, and greater redistribution of wealth. For Malema's party, this budget is just another sign that the current government is unwilling to take the bold steps needed to fix South Africa's deeply unequal economy. And the IFP? They're playing the middle ground, warning both of fiscal recklessness and political dishonesty. Their message is simple: stop using the poor as pawns in a bigger political game. So where does this leave us? As the budget now enters the parliamentary committee phase, the fight is far from over. Opposition parties are mobilizing, civil society is watching, and grassroots organizations are beginning to push back. Whether that will lead to actual revisions in the budget remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: this isn't just about numbers. It's about values, priorities, and the future of a country that is still struggling to live up to the promise of 1994. The government says it's making hard choices. The opposition says it's making the wrong ones. And everyday South Africans, those living on the edge of survival, are caught in the middle. Thanks for watching. If you found this breakdown informative, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments, do you think this budget is truly pro-poor, or just political theater? Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and see you next time.